Hi everyone, and thank you so much for watching my channel The Witty Turtle. And in this particular video we are going to start with section 35D. Section 35D speaks about amortization of preliminary expenses, right? Preliminary expenses क्या क्या होता है? For example, every kind of expense which is incurred before commencing of the business. For example, you're preparing your feasibility report, then determining your cost of project, then your printing of memorandum of association or article of association, then all the legal charges for incorporation of company, the fee paid to the MCA website, right? Everything is included in the list of preliminary expenses. So this says that whatever amount you spend as preliminary expenses on your business, that particular amount will be amortized over a particular period, right? So today we are going to study about that. So now we will understand that this preliminary expenses are allowed for which persons. Okay, so it is allowed for all the resident persons. In the law it is written that it is allowed for Indian companies who are by default residents. So it means every resident person can claim this deduction, right? Now you may think that this preliminary expenses should be incurred in what time so that it will be allowed, right? ये कब incur होना चाहिए तब so that ये हमारे deduction में allowed होगा. So there are three things. The first is before commencement of the business. Before commencement of the business. And the next two says if your business is already commenced or if you have an existing business, then in that case, if you are doing any kind of extension of your business or if you are trying to set up a new unit, right? Then in that case what happens, in that case also this preliminary expenses will be allowed. Three cases: before commencement of the business, second is what, second is your extension of your existing business, and third is what, setting up of a new unit in your existing business, right? Now the question arises that if we are incurring a certain amount of preliminary expenses, then is it allowed for all the amount? Like if we are incurring 5 lakhs, then is it allowed for all the 5 lakhs? So here is the catch. The limit is set up as 5% of the cost of project. 5% of the cost of project. So now here the question arises, what do you mean by cost of project? So cost of project includes all kind of fixed asset investment. Every kind of fixed asset investment is included in your cost of project. So here cost of project includes what? Every kind of fixed asset investment which is shown in the books of accounts in the last day of the previous year. In the last day of the previous year in which business commences, right? So उस दिन पे जितना अमाउंट का टोटल फिक्स्ड एसेट इन्वेस्टमेंट है, दैट इज नोन एज योर कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट, राइट? So this is for that case where the preliminary expenses are incurred before commencement of business. But when it comes to extension of business and setting up of a new unit, so in that case what happens? On the last day of the previous year in which such extension is completed, or the previous year in which the new unit starts production, right? So on that day whatever is the amount of total fixed asset, that is known as your cost of project, right? So your preliminary expenses will be allowed up to a limit of 5% of your total cost of project. That means preliminary expenses or 5% of your cost of project, whichever is lower, that amount will be allowed in 5 equal installments. In 5 equal installments, beginning with the previous year in which the business has commenced. Beginning with the previous year in which the business has commenced, it will go for 5 subsequent years, and it will be allowed in 5 equal installments in those subsequent 5 years. Understood? Now, here is another thing. If the SSE is an Indian company, if the SSE is an Indian company, then in that case, what happens? Instead, the limit for Indian company is instead of 5% of cost of project, it will become 5% of the capital employed. 5% of the capital employed. So here what do you mean by capital employed? Capital employed includes all your share capital, all your debentures, and all your long term borrowings. Okay, share capital, debentures, and all your long term borrowings. So all these things are coming under your capital employed. For Indian company, the limit is 5% of your capital employed. That means, like, the company can, Indian company can take, it says, the law says Indian company can take 5% of capital employed as the limit. So obviously now Indian company has an option whether it will choose 5% of cost of project or 5% of capital employed, right? So whichever is higher between the two, that will be known as the limit of preliminary expenses allowed in case of Indian company, right? Now we will understand what are the items which come under your preliminary expenses under this particular section. So first we will understand four items. The first item says preparation of your feasibility report. What is feasibility report? To check whether this business is feasible or not. इसके एग्जीक्यूशन में क्या क्या चैलेंजेस आएंगे, या फिर ये बिजनेस, बेसिकली ये बिजनेस चलेगा या नहीं, राइट? दैट इज योर feasibility report. Next is your preparation of project report. Okay, preparation of project report. The next point says conducting a market survey or any kind of survey which is necessary for the business to start. Okay, and lastly any kind of engineering services relating to business. Okay, so the first four things are, like, your first is your feasibility report, then is your project report, then any kind of survey necessary for starting the business, and lastly engineering service. So why I told you about these four things first? Because whatever work is done in connection of all these four things must be done by the SSE himself or by any approved concern. So all these four works must be done by the SSE or by any approved organization or by any approved concern, right? So if they are done by the SSE or by any approved concern, then in that case, these items will fall under your uh, preliminary expenses. So first we studied about four items. Then now coming to the next five items. Okay. So the next in the next five items, the first item is any kind of legal charges. Any kind of legal charges while drafting any agreement between the SSE and any other person, right? SSE is one party, any other person is second party. So if between them any agreement is there, then drafting of that agreement is necessary. So for that, whatever legal charges are there, that will also come under your preliminary expenses. When we are speaking about legal charges, then here the second point says legal charges for incorporation of the company or incorporation of the business. Okay, the next point says any kind of legal charges for drafting the MOA and AOA. Legal charges for drafting the MOA and AOA. The next thing it says about printing expenses of your MOA and AOA. And lastly, it says about any kind of expenditure incurred in connection to your issuing of shares or debentures, then that will also fall under your preliminary expenses, right? And सबसे last में, first we studied four, then we studied five, and the last one says or any other expenses which may be prescribed, right? So how many elements are there? There are a total of 10 elements. Okay, so let's do a quick revision of all these 10 elements. The first one says preparation of feasibility report. The second says preparation of project report. The next says conducting of any kind of survey which is necessary for starting the business. And the fourth one says any kind of engineering service relating to the business. Now, here is the catch, is that these four things, these first four items must be carried on by the SSC himself or by any other approved concern. Okay, now coming to the next five items. The first item says that any kind of legal charges while drafting the agreement between the SSC and any other party. Next is what? Legal charges for drafting the MOA and AOA. Next is your printing of MOA and AOA. And the fourth element says that any kind of legal charges for incorporation of the business or starting of the business. And lastly, it says Yes, any kind of expenditure related to issuance of your shares or debentures, or any other thing which may be prescribed further in the law, right? Here, another point that we need to remember is that in case of any SSC other than a company or a cooperative society, in that case, what happens? The deduction shall be allowed only if the books of accounts of the SSC uh, has been audited and the audited report has been furnished on or before the date which is referred to us in the section 44AB for the first year in which the deduction is claimed, in which 35D deduction is claimed, right? So जिस साल में 35D का डिडक्शन क्लेम हो रहा है, in that particular year, the books of accounts of the SSC being other than a company or a cooperative society, the books of accounts of the SSC must be audited and the audit report should be furnished before the due date mentioned under section 44AB. Right, now this is clear. And here the last point to remember is that in case of amalgamation or demerger, okay, in case of amalgamation or demerger, in the year in which the amalgamation takes place, in that year the old company will not get any deduction and the new company will get the deduction, right? And the new company will get the deduction in such a way as if the amalgamation has not occurred, right? For example, these are two companies and they are getting amalgamated and the amalgamated company is formed, right? So in this case what happens, if this company was incurring the expenditure, then in that case this provision will be applied to the new company in such a manner as if the amalgamation has not happened, and as if the amalgamation had not happened, then this particular company will get the deduction. So the similar amount of deduction with similar provisions will be applied to the new company, and the very same case in case of demerger as well, right? I really hope you have enjoyed learning this particular section. This is not very important section, but yes, you may get some questions from this particular section. I hope this video has been a useful one to you, and if you find this video helpful, then please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, The Witty Turtle, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that tomorrow you'll be notified when I'll upload a new video. And of course, don't forget to share this video with your CA and CMA final friends.